The diner's neon sign flickered against the dark sky, buzzing softly over the hum of passing trucks. It was the kind of roadside place that smelled like old coffee and fried eggs, open all night for whoever wandered in from the highway. Nobody expected trouble that evening, until she walked through the door. Her name was Lena Brooks. She couldn't have been more than 20, dressed in a denim jacket, dusty boots, and a look that said she'd seen more miles than most people twice her age. She slid into a booth near the window, trying to stay unnoticed. All she wanted was a hot meal, a moment to breathe, and maybe a cup of coffee strong enough to drown the ache in her chest. Marlene, the middle-aged waitress who'd worked there forever, brought her a mug and a warm smile. "Rough night, honey." Lena forced a tired grin. "Just a long ride." But across the counter, 3 men were already watching her, locals who'd been drinking since sundown, full of cheap beer and bad manners. Their laughter grew louder each time Lena looked away. One of them, a tall man with a patchy beard and a cruel grin, elbowed his buddies. "Hey, boys, looks like we got ourselves some company tonight." Lena pretended not to hear. She'd learned that silence was safer than talking. But the man didn't take hints. He got up, swaggering toward her booth. "What's a pretty thing like you doin' in a dump like this alone?" "Just eatin'," she said quietly, not looking up. He leaned closer, his breath sour with whiskey. "You should come sit with us. We don't bite, unless you want us to." Marlene stepped forward. "Dean, leave her be. She ain't interested." Dean smirked. "Relax, Marlene. I'm just bein' friendly." Lena finally looked up. Her voice was calm but sharp. "I said no, thanks." The diner went quiet. A few truckers looked up from their plates, sensing trouble brewing. Dean didn't like being told off, especially not in front of an audience. His buddies started chuckling, egging him on. Dean sneered. "Don't play hard to get." Then, before anyone could stop him, he grabbed the front of her shirt and yanked. The fabric tore straight down the middle. The sound echoed through the room like a gunshot. Lena froze, her eyes wide, breath catching in her throat. Gasps rippled through the diner. Marlene shouted, "That's enough," and reached for the phone, but Dean slammed his hand down on the counter, knocking it away. "Don't you dare," he warned. Lena stood there trembling, hurt, furious, humiliated, but she didn't cry. Not in front of them. Not in front of anyone. She took a step back, fixed her torn shirt with shaking hands, and looked Dean straight in the eyes. "You just made the worst mistake of your life." Dean laughed. "Oh yeah? You gonna call your boyfriend?" Lena didn't answer. She grabbed her jacket, dropped a few bills on the table, and walked out into the cold night without another word. Dean's friends howled with laughter as the bell above the door jingled behind her. But their laughter wouldn't last long. Outside, Lena walked to her Harley, her breath fogging in the chilly air. Her hands shook as she pulled out her phone. She hadn't wanted to do this, not after promising her brother she'd stay out of the club's business. But there were lines you didn't cross. She dialed a number that she knew by heart. It rang once. Then a deep voice answered. "Yeah. Luke, it's me." Her voice trembled slightly. He was silent for a moment, then his tone hardened. "Lena? What happened?" "Some guys at Frank's diner. She paused, swallowing hard. "They tore my shirt, Luke. Tried to grab me." The line went silent again, and then came the low, steady voice she knew too well. "Stay there. Don't move." "Luke, I didn't mean to." "Stay there," he repeated, and hung up. Inside the diner, Dean and his buddies were still laughing when a faint rumble began to rise in the distance. At first, it sounded like thunder, then engines. Deep, growling, rolling closer. The windows started to tremble. The laughter faded. "What the hell is that?" one of the men muttered. Marlene froze mid-step, her eyes widening as headlights appeared outside, 1, 2, then a dozen. Motorcycles filled the parking lot, chrome gleaming under the diner's buzzing sign. Luke Brooks stepped off his bike first. Broad-shouldered, tattooed, eyes cold as winter. The back of his leather jacket read, "Hell's Angels." The other riders fanned out behind him, silent, waiting. Luke looked across the lot and saw Lena sitting on her bike, arms crossed, trying to hide the tear in her shirt. He didn't need an explanation. The look in her eyes said everything. He turned toward the diner and pushed open the door. The bell jingled softly, and every man inside froze. Luke's voice was calm, deadly quiet. "Which one of you touched my sister?" Nobody spoke. But in that heavy silence, everyone knew the night was about to turn from laughter to fear. No one in Frank's diner moved. The sound of the door chime still hung in the air, faint and trembling, as Luke Brooks stepped fully inside. His boots thudded softly against the checkered floor, his presence heavier than the growl of the engine still idling outside. Dean tried to play it cool. He leaned back on his stool, flashing a shaky grin. "Hey man, what's the problem? We're just having a good time here." Luke's eyes cut to him, cold and unblinking. "You the one who touched her?" Dean hesitated, his grin faltering. His two friends exchanged nervous glances. "Look, it was just a joke," Dean said quickly. "Nobody got hurt." Luke took another step forward. "A joke?" He looked around the diner, his voice low but steady. "You think putting your hands on a woman who told you no is a joke?" No one answered. Even the hum of the old refrigerator seemed to fade. Marlene stood near the counter, her face pale, eyes darting between Luke and Dean. Luke's jaw tightened. "I don't care who you are or what bar you crawl out of, you don't put your hands on my sister." Dean stood, trying to sound tough even as his voice cracked. "You don't scare me, man. I don't care who you ride with." Luke smiled faintly, a grim, humorless thing. "You will." He nodded once toward the door. Instantly, two of the bikers stepped inside, massive men with matching leather vests, tattoos peeking from under their sleeves. The air in the diner shifted again. Dean's confidence evaporated. Outside, Luke said quietly. Dean shook his head. "I ain't going nowhere." Luke stepped closer until there was barely an inch between them. "You can walk out," he said softly, "or be carried out." Dean's friend stood frozen. Marlene finally whispered, "Just go, Dean. Don't make this worse." For a moment, Dean looked like he might argue, but then Luke's hand brushed the front of his jacket, a tiny motion that carried 1,000 unspoken threats. Dean swallowed hard and walked toward the door, his friend scrambling behind him. Outside, the night was alive with rumbling engines and heavy stairs. The other bikers stood in a semicircle, silent as shadows. Dean stopped in the middle of the lot, turning toward Luke. "Look, man, I said it was a joke." "No need for." Luke didn't let him finish. He stepped forward and grabbed Dean by the collar, pulling him close until their foreheads almost touched. "You tore my sister's shirt. You humiliated her. You scared her. That's not a joke. That's disrespect." Dean stammered, "I didn't mean." Luke shoved him backward, not enough to hurt, but enough to send a clear message. "You're lucky she called me before the cops. Because they would have taken you in. I'm giving you a chance to walk away and never come near this diner again. You understand me?" Dean nodded quickly, face pale. Yeah, I got it." Luke pointed toward the road. "Then get out of here. All of you." They didn't need to be told twice. Dean and his buddies scrambled to their truck and sped off into the dark, taillights disappearing down the highway. The sound of engines faded, replaced by the steady rumble of the bike still idling, waiting for Luke's signal. He turned and looked at Lena. She was standing by her Harley, arms folded tightly around herself. The cold air brushed her torn shirt, but her expression wasn't fear, it was pride, a strange mix of relief and guilt. Luke walked over and crouched in front of her. "You okay, kid?" Lena nodded, though her voice was soft. "Yeah. I just didn't want to bother you. I thought I could handle it." "You did handle it," Luke said. "You did exactly right. You called family. That's what we're for." Her eyes shimmered. "I just didn't want you to see me like that." Luke sighed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Lena, listen to me. There's no shame in asking for help. You didn't deserve what they did. You never do." She swallowed hard, blinking back tears. "They made me feel small, Luke. For a second, I almost believed them." Luke shook his head. "You ain't small. You're Brooke's blood. You stand tall even when they try to break you." The bikers around them stood quietly, letting the moment breathe. One of them, a grizzled old man with gray in his beard, stepped forward and handed Lena his jacket. "Here, sweetheart," he said gently. "Ain't right what they did. You wear this tonight." She took it with a trembling smile. "Thank you." Marlene came out then, her hands still shaking. "Luke, thank you. I was scared they were gonna hurt her worse." Luke nodded. "You did good, Marlene. Calling the cops wouldn't have fixed what they broke." Marlene's eyes softened. "I remember when you two were kids. Your mama used to bring you in here for pie. She'd be proud of how you look after her." Luke's jaw tightened again, emotion flickering in his eyes. "Yeah. She always said family sticks, no matter what." The bikers began to mount their bikes, one by one. Luke helped Lena onto hers, making sure she was steady. "Come on," he said. "We'll ride back together. You've done enough for tonight." Lena hesitated. "Luke, what if they come back?" He gave a small smile, the kind only a big brother could pull off. "They won't. Not after tonight." The engines roared back to life, echoing off the trees and empty road. Lena felt the vibration in her chest, the power of belonging, of being surrounded by people who'd fight for her no matter what. For the first time that night, she felt safe. As they rode off into the dark, the neon sign of Frank's Diner flickered one last time. The night was quiet again, but the memory of what happened would linger, a warning, a reminder. That girl everyone thought was just another drifter. She had family. And some families don't call the police, they call each other. And when they show up, they don't knock. They ride.